Let me tell you something about success. It's not about talent. It's not about luck. It's not about how much natural ability you think you have. All that shit is irrelevant. You want to know what makes the real difference? The hardest worker in the room. That's your competitive advantage right there. The person who shows up every damn day, who pushes harder than everyone else, who goes all in, who sacrifices everything to get to the top. That person doesn't need talent. That person has one thing that the rest of the world doesn't have, an unbreakable work ethic. And let me tell you, that shit will take you farther than any natural talent ever will. We live in a world full of excuses. People make excuses for why they can't do this, why they can't achieve that, why they're not as good as someone else. They blame their circumstances. They blame other people. They blame everything except themselves. But the truth is, you don't need any of that. You don't need the world to hand you anything. You need to be the hardest worker in the room every damn day. You want to be successful? You want to rise above the rest? Then outwork them, plain and simple. Don't worry about what they're doing. Don't worry about what they have. Worry about what you are doing and how hard you are willing to push to be the best. There's a saying, you can't outwork a person who refuses to quit. Well, guess what? That's real. I've seen it in my own life, and I've seen it in the lives of athletes and entrepreneurs who have achieved greatness. It's not about how gifted you are. It's not about how many resources you have. It's about how much work you're willing to put in when everyone else is ready to quit. Talent will take you so far, but work ethic, grit, and relentless effort will take you further than you ever thought possible. I didn't have talent. I didn't have natural ability. I wasn't born with some magic gift that made me great. I wasn't born with a body that could run miles and miles, swim in freezing cold water, or push through pain like I was some superhuman. What I had was a burning desire to prove everyone wrong. What I had was the ability to show up every single day, no matter how much it hurt, no matter how exhausted I was, no matter how many times I failed. I worked harder than everyone around me. I outworked my competition. I showed up when they were sleeping. I pushed when they quit. That's how I got where I am today. And I'll tell you right now, if you're not willing to outwork everyone else, then you're never going to make it. I'm not saying you need to be a freak of nature like I am, but you damn well better have a hunger to work harder than anyone else in the room. Look at some of the greatest athletes in history, some of the most successful people in the world. They didn't get there by sitting back, by waiting for things to happen. They didn't get there by relying on their God-given gifts. They got there by outworking everyone around them, by grinding, by sacrificing, by showing up every damn day, even when they didn't feel like it. Think of Kobe Bryant, the Black Mamba. That dude was a monster on the court, but it wasn't his talent alone that made him great. It was his work ethic. He outworked everyone. He didn't care what anyone else was doing. He was in the gym at 4 a.m. shooting baskets, getting better, pushing harder than anyone else. He didn't need the spotlight. He didn't need the attention. All he needed was that relentless drive to be the best. And guess what? He became the best. Then there's someone like Steve Jobs. The guy wasn't born a genius. He wasn't born with some magic touch, but he worked like a maniac. He worked day and night, putting in hours upon hours to turn Apple into the juggernaut it is today. He didn't sit back and wait for the perfect moment to strike. He built that company with pure grit, with the willingness to sacrifice everything for his vision. He stayed up late, he took risks, and he failed countless times. But none of that stopped him. He outworked his competition, outlasted the people who doubted him, and became one of the most successful entrepreneurs in history. Let's be real here. If you want to be successful, you've got to be willing to eat shit. You've got to be willing to suffer, to push through pain, to grind when it feels like the world is against you. And guess what? That's where the magic happens. That's where the breakthroughs come. When you're the hardest worker in the room, you separate yourself from the pack. You create a gap between you and the rest of the world, and no one can catch you. That's how the winners are made. Not by being naturally gifted, but by putting in the work when no one else will. Look at the people who failed to make it. They're not bad people. They're not untalented people. They just didn't want it bad enough. They weren't willing to put in the hours to do the things that other people weren't willing to do. They wanted success, but they weren't willing to sacrifice for it. They weren't willing to put in the long hours, the endless sweat, the frustration of feeling like they were never going to get there. And that's why they quit. That's why they never reached their goals. Because they thought talent alone would take them there. But that's bullshit. Talent is a small part of the equation. The real magic happens when you work harder than everyone else. It doesn't matter if you're an athlete, an entrepreneur, a student, or anyone else. The key to success is always the same. Outwork everyone around you. Do the things they're not willing to do. Show up when they're sleeping. Work harder when they're playing. And when it feels like you can't go any further, when you feel like you're about to break, that's when the real work begins. That's when the real winners emerge. Because the people who are willing to push through the pain, to keep grinding when everyone else has quit, are the ones who achieve greatness. I've had moments in my life where I was dead tired, where I thought I couldn't take another step, but I kept going. I didn't stop. I didn't look for excuses. I just pushed harder. And that's how I got to where I am today. It's not some magic formula. It's not some secret talent I had that made me great. It's about putting in the work every damn day, grinding when everyone else is sitting on their ass. And that's your competitive advantage. That's what will set you apart from the rest of the world.